Welcome wherever you are around the world to Football Access, the podcast about the A-League and all things football in Australia. My name is Gabriel D'Angelo and it's great to have your company. I'm joined by George Grossios and Bernd Merkel. Good evening, gentlemen.
Hello, Gabriel. Bernd.
George, good to see you. Hi, Gabriel.
Round 21 started with Western Sydney Wanderers defeating Sydney FC 1-0 in the Sydney Derby. Newcastle defeated Perth Glory 2-1. Melbourne Victory beat Adelaide by the same scoreline 2-1. Western United thumped Central Coast 6-2. Melbourne City surpassed Brisbane Roar 1-0, while Wellington Phoenix had the bye. Now the ladder, Sydney FC remains on top. Melbourne City, Perth Glory, Wellington, Adelaide and Brisbane make up the top six, while Western Sydney, Western United, Melbourne Victory, Newcastle and Central Coast make up the bottom. I think I know what your answer is going to be, but I'll ask anyway. What game was the match of the round for you guys?
I think the first game where Sydney unexpectedly lost.
And it's
breathed a little bit of life back into the competition.
Absolutely. Yeah,
unexpected, I must say, given the fact what happened over the last weeks. But the Wanderers, since they have the new coach, right? I think 3 wins and a draw now. And yeah, we discussed last week Marcus Babbel, but don't have to go back there. So definitely, as you said, very interesting and good for the competition. And yeah, the Blues will, I guess, suffer a bit more now from that because it was the second loss in the second derby this season.
That's true, but I mean, you said it was unexpected, but can we really say it was unexpected? Because we did say last week that the Wanderers were getting better and that they were improving under Jean-Paul de Marini, that they were sort of on this roll. So was it really that unexpected?
Well, I think the form line suggested Sydney would be the stronger team, but ladder positions don't always mean much in derbies. Mm-hmm. And credit to Western Sydney, they obviously did their homework. They structured really nicely. They were very compact in defence and very fluent and smooth going forward. So it just proves that if you have your game plan right on the day and you have your best starting 11, and Western Sydney, I think, are starting to compile their best 11.
Yeah.
And credit to me, I could say now, Mitch Duke, again, I mentioned him last week, but he's that kind of leader that you need. But coming back to the match of the week, you probably wanted us to talk about another match as well, right?
Well,
I mean, to have 8 goals in Geelong, talking about Western United 6-2, might be worth mentioning, right?
It is worth mentioning, but also at the same time with Western United's performance, is it because they played against Central Coast? Like, can we say, oh, okay, they're back on track, or is it because they played against Central Coast?
Well, you can only play whoever comes up against you. So let's take nothing away from United. They had to win. Their form in recent weeks has dipped, so a badly needed win, it throws them back into finals calculations.
Yeah,
it's as often as you sometimes say, the right opponent to the right time, right? So still credit to Western United because you still have to win it in the way they did, and the Mariners, although they are bottom of the ladder, but yeah, to get 6 goals, it's not that easy. So they deserved it, and but we will see what the next weeks will bring, because Western United, I think, are still hoping for their spot in the playoffs, and it could have been just a start.
And Max Burgess to score a first half hat-trick.
Yeah.
That's very rare.
Yeah, well, that's true, especially for Western United. But at the risk of talking too much about the Sydney Derby, just want to go back to the Sydney Derby a second for what happened not on the field, but off the field. What were your thoughts about Steve Corica and Daniel Georgievski's tunnel fight? Did you think that Steve Corica sort of was being a little bit unprofessional, seeing as he is the coach, or was he well within his rights to defend his player after what had happened on the field?
I think so. Daniel Georgievski has developed a reputation for being undisciplined. You can only take your mind back a few weeks ago where he tried to lead an on-field exodus of players after being penalised for a handball. You might remember that footage where he's waved at his teammates to leave the pitch. So he is very feisty and very temperamental. Yeah. And again, another red card doesn't help his cause. So as you said, Steve Corica naturally has to defend his players.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm with you, George. On the other hand, as a coach, it's a bit tricky, right? Because they all should in a certain way behave, and there's always emotions involved. But as a coach, you have to be that kind of leadership role, right? And to do that in the right way, I get it. We probably all understand that kind of reaction. Was it maybe a bit too much? I don't know. If a coach gets involved with a player, there's always, if we look in the past with other coaches that were sent off during games as well, right? So anyway, Georgievski, I think, got now 2 games.
2-game ban.
Yeah, 2-game ban. And
I would have given him 3.
Yeah. I agree with you.
Yeah. For that one, and as you said, it was not the first time in the way that he reacted. So understandable, Steve Corrigan, but I would say, as a coach,
it is tricky.
Yeah.
You're both right. It is very tricky because he's the coach and he has to sort of have a presence of being calm and a leader.
Yeah. Set the example.
Exactly, yeah. Set the example. But at the same time, what Georgievski did, he kicked Tessio in the face.
Yeah.
There's no excuse for that. And we have the VAR, so everybody can see it. His team were winning 1-0 in the Sydney Derby with just a few minutes to go, and he gives away a stupid red card. That's going to, play at a disadvantage to his team.
Yeah.
He's very lucky that Sydney didn't equalise. It would have ruined everything. So for Georgievski to do that, he's an idiot. For Steve Corica to explode the way he did in the tunnel, I can understand his rage, because if your player gets kicked in the face, and if you were the player and you say, hey, my coach is defending me, he's fighting for me in the tunnel, I feel great. Wow, that coach has got my back. But also, again, what you're saying at the same time, it's tricky.
Yeah.
But,
Look, there's no right or wrong in this instance. Sure, the FFA will say it was wrong of Corica, and it was obviously wrong of Georgievski to conduct himself in that way. So, as we said earlier, I have no issue at all with him serving a 2-week ban. I'm a little bit harsher. As I said, I would have given him the 3.
Yeah. Totally agree. A kick in the face.
And probably for the team itself, I think it might also cover a little bit then the loss, because the team then would say, okay, we have a coach that is behind us, that has our back. And from that, and then it might stick them a bit together more. So
it might galvanise them.
Yeah.
Well, that's true. It could galvanise them. But for more Sydney FC news, there wasn't just A-League action, but also Asian Champions League action, where Sydney FC took on Jeonbuk from the K-League, where they drew 2-2. Sydney are third in Group H behind Yokohama and Jeonbuk. What were your thoughts on their performance last night?
Give them credit. They had to show a response after the disappointing loss to Western Sydney. Of course, coming on the back of that hiding they suffered to Ange Postecoglou's Yokohama Marinos. So it keeps them in the hunt for progression, for qualification to the next phase.
I disagree.
Yep.
I think you have to win these home games in such a group as an Australian team in the Champions League. Also, if you look, I think when Melbourne Victory won that qualifying match against Kashima Antlers, I think that was the first match in 15 or 16 away matches that an Australian team. I might be wrong, but if I remember well. So the Australian teams are not that well performing away anyway, and that's why you have to win these matches at home. In particular, I don't expect them, the way they played against Yokohama, to get anything at home. So is that kind of match that you have to win, and they were close. So of course there's still the hope, but let's see. Hopefully might be wrong, but I guess these 2 points are the ones missing in the end.
Yeah, I agree with you. I thought that to play at home, and they were winning. They should have won that game. That was a game they should have won. But also at the same time, Jeonbuk had their chances. And what I was sort of scratching my head about this when I was watching the game. Jeonbuk, when they attacked, it was just so simple. It was like a 1-2 ball in the box and they caused danger. Whereas Sydney FC really had to labour to get, into the box or to have a shot on target and all that. And this is what I want to ask you guys, because they were playing against J-League and K-League opposition. Against Yokohama, they got thumped really badly. It really was like watching, amateurs versus professionals. I don't want to be that harsh, but it's true. It was a really bad hiding from Yokohama to Sydney. And then you've got this K-League team who it almost was like, if we get a draw, then that's fine. We're happy with it because we're going to win at home anyway. That sort of mentality. Sydney FC are the reigning champions. They won last season, and they're 10 points ahead on the ladder, and they're easily the best team in the competition right now. Is a little bit worrying that our best team in our competition is doing so badly against teams in the J League or K League. Is it concerning to you?
I'm not surprised at all, gentlemen, because the Japanese, Korean and all of the other Asian teams, they don't have a salary cap. So where our teams are at a disadvantage before kickoff, we have salary caps, we have restrictions in terms of imports and marquee players. The overseas clubs have bigger budgets and, let's face it, better facilities.
And they have a second division.
Yes.
Better coaches.
Better coaches, better money.
Yeah. But I hear you in terms of, I still see the J League higher than the K League.
Yes.
The Chinese league, I think, is like, the top teams. Don't have to talk about the money that's going into those clubs. But I think with the K League, even if we are a bit worse, just, how to say, setting that seed in terms of, or planting that seed that, hey, we need to step up and we can have something against and get something out of these matches against the K-League teams. So just mentally, is an important step. And I think the K-League teams, in my opinion, are the ones we can get closest to. So even if you say, we can be happy with the draw, but then it's all about what do we want to achieve in that competition. And the chances are there, in my opinion. You have the chance to win against these teams at home. I'm not talking about Yokohama, I'm not talking about the Shanghai teams and all of those. So, and I'm with you. It's a bit worrying, but more in terms of looking back what happened over the last 4, 5, 6 years. And also that Australia, I think, is close to losing their second spot in the Champions League, so that we only have one team there and the other two have to qualify. And I think it's against Thailand, so Thailand will take over that spot, and that's something that should be even more worrying.
Yeah, absolutely. You're both right. That's what's so concerning. And I mean, you mentioned the Chinese league. I mean, they're investing money hand over fist.
They're awash with money, you're right.
Oh, absolutely. Billions of dollars. And some people laugh at the Indian Premier League or the Indian Super League, or as I like to call the Indian Superannuation League, because there's so many older players that just retire there. But at least they're actually making an effort to fix up football in that country. I mean, if you see that they actually are trying to improve it, and the national team has improved slightly as well. Thailand, they're investing so much money. All these countries are investing money in football, and we're not. And you can tell, like what you just said, salary cap, no second division, better facilities, all this sort of stuff. It's showing on Asia. It's showing, on a global scale. It's concerning to me.
And it's a miracle that Western Sydney Wanderers have won a Champions League, considering how tough it is to compete against these nations.
Yeah.
But still, still okay to win that. I'm not talking about that, but I think since then we had only 3 times that an Australian team made it to the round of the last 16, and that was it. Never a quarterfinal, never a semi-final, and that's not enough. And I would say we're still good enough to be better. And then on top, we need to invest and all of that. But I think a Sydney team, the way as it is at the moment, in how they are, more or less reigning almost the whole league, can do better. And they were a bit unlucky last night, but we will see what the next weeks bring. But I doubt that they will make it now to the next round.
Yeah, and we'll see what.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah, fingers crossed. Even though we're not Sydney fans, but we are Australian football fans, and we want the Australian teams to do well. So hopefully Perth Glory and Melbourne Victory, at least they go further into the Asian Champions League. But, it's still early days left. Who knows what can happen. But speaking of Australia in Asia, the Matildas' road to Tokyo comes to an end as they move into the final stage of Olympic qualifying for Tokyo 2020. This Friday night, they take on Vietnam in the first leg at Newcastle's McDonald Jones Stadium. The second leg will be in Vietnam next Wednesday. The Matildas are boasting the presence of their key players like Kerr, Lugazzo, Van Egmond, Gorry, Ford, Razzo, Simon Carpenter. The quality of the list goes on and on. George, I know that you've been an avid watcher of not just the W League but the Matildas for quite some time. What are your thoughts on the upcoming games?
I think we'll win this quite comfortably,
Oh,
particularly the first leg. Obviously, home ground advantage. We have a very imposing record in Australia, so I would be extremely surprised if we didn't get full value, full points.
Yeah.
And I love that attitude, George, because I read what Ante Milicic said, and it is 100% understandable. He's the coach, and he needs to prepare his team in terms of, they are still a difficult opponent. They are quick on the wings. They have some good technical abilities. But honestly, I'm with you. Anything else than qualifying and in a quite convincing way would be a disappointment. And it's not only is it about Tokyo, but looking back, I think the World Cup was a bit of a disappointment.
It was.
So that's why it's so important. And because if you look at what happened to the Socceroos, I mean, they were the reigning Asian champions, but then they played, let's say, a very average qualifier for Russia. I mean, in the end, they made it, but it was very rocky.
Yeah.
Russia itself was, they had a tough group, but not maybe what we were hoping for. But then on top, the Asian Cup was definitely a disappointment. So now they are starting more or less from the scratch. And the Olyroos qualified. That was the first step. But to avoid that with the Matildas, that's why it's I would say, twofold way, very important that they make their way. And I don't doubt it that against Vietnam, with all respect.
See, that's the good thing. We now have expectations of success. Once upon a time, for both men and women, we were just happy to be there. We were just happy to make up the numbers. Now we actually expect and demand success.
Yeah, absolutely right. Yeah.
And as long as it is on a good level, because on the other hand, honestly, when people were saying about the Matildas have a good chance to win the World Cup last year, so that was for me a bit too much, because I don't see the Matildas on a level with the US and unfortunately
Germany.
I mean, we lost that advantage that we had for many years. But anyway, so unfortunately, I was right during the tournament. I would have seen at least Australia maybe making to the semi-finals. But to have these expectations in a I would say healthy way, and to say, okay, come on, the Olympic Games against Vietnam, that's a must. And I have no doubts.
Well, I'm glad. Call me glass half empty. But I've sort of noticed that with the Matildas, two things: that when they play against teams who are, shall we say, not as good, that they sort of play at their level as well. They really sort of struggle to play their natural game, where it's just free-flowing and attacking and scoring a little bit more easily than what they would against even harder teams, against tougher opponents. But I've sort of noticed that with Milicic as coach, that they have lost a bit of that edge. When Stajic was coach, there seemed to be a little bit more of that attacking, free-flowing, just, that sort of mentality of just going at it, you know what I mean? Where their forward line was just so good, so solid. Their midfield was just working so good. I really enjoy watching the Matildas play. I think that, in particular, Carpenter, she's probably the most underrated player. I think she's just brilliant. She's one of the best players out there. I enjoy watching them play, but at the same time, I watch them and I'm thinking, there's something missing. That they're not as, this is going to sound harsh, not as good as what they were under Alen Stajic. I don't know if you guys have noticed that.
Oh, perhaps they are still taking time to adjust to Milic's game plan and
it's
tactics.
Been a couple of years now.
Yeah, but you have to remember with Stajic, they had that particular game plan so well honed.
Yeah.
They're almost robotic.
Yeah.
But
now,
just natural.
Yeah. But, I mean, how long is it now? 1 year, right? Since
the Stajic was dismissed in the lead up to the World Cup.
Yeah, early last year. So
one thing that you can be guaranteed about the opposition, the Vietnamese, they will stack the defence. So that too will be a challenge for the Matildas to try and obviously stay patient, stay disciplined, stick to their game plan, play the flanks. The Vietnamese, they will rely obviously on counter-attacking football. So it's a challenge in more ways than one.
Yeah.
I mean, the other thing is maybe we are worrying here too much anyway, but who knows whether the Olympic Games are
going to be staged.
Yes. But let's be positive. And but yeah, with the game plan, look, it's always often about the way how you qualify is one thing, and then how you perform at the tournament is a second thing. And yeah, we just discussed the World Cup, so give them the second chance about hopefully being qualified then for Tokyo, and hopefully the tournament taking place, and then let's see how they perform there. So I hear your concerns, but yeah, it's interesting because I just read that interview in terms of that they have now so many Melbourne City players as they never had before, and the Melbourne City women are really
they're the
amazing.
dominant force in the competition in the W League.
And I'm actually a fan of having these blocks of players from the same club in a national team. I think that's a good thing if they deserve it, and I assume so. So yeah, we will see, Gabriel, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
we'll
next
see.
week.
Well, hopefully, fingers
Yeah.
crossed. But what you mentioned about Melbourne City, their ex-coach, who's now the coach of the Arsenal women's team, Joe Montemurro, he's actually favourite to replace Milicic after the Olympics, because, you know, once the Olympics is off, he's going to go and coach the new team, Macquarie FC. Well, whether he accepts the job or not, because after all, he's at Arsenal. He's not going to, you know, who knows. But I wish I could share your optimism. I hope that the Matildas win comfortably, that they basically, you know, seal qualification, you know, tomorrow night. But yeah.
So they will have a comfortable win at home and then a draw in Vietnam. That's my prediction.
I hope.
I'm predicting 2 wins. I'm predicting a clean sweep, and I'm predicting that when we have this conversation next week, you'll be saying, oh, we will be saying, Bern and I will be saying, we told you so. And you heard it here first on Football Access.
I'll be more than happy to be proven incorrect. I'll be more than happy to be proven wrong. Like, yes, I hope that's the case. Anyway, moving on, more talk about the Olympics. Graham Arnold has called on the Prime Minister and the Australian Sports Commission to start funding the sport properly as the Ollaroos prepare for their first Olympic campaign since 2008. Men's football had its funding cut in 2018 and is now set to be hampered by a lack of resources heading into the tournament in Tokyo. Earlier this month, Australian Olympic Committee President John Coates lashed out at Australian Sports Commission Chairman John Wiley about the funding issues ahead of Tokyo. The two men have for a long time disagreed on how funding for sport is allocated in general, not just for football. Gentlemen, what are your thoughts on this?
A very contentious, controversial issue. We've had sports rorts. We've had, even within our own competition, major global companies like Caltex withdraw support, Hyundai. I mean, good on Graham Arnold for calling on further funding and support. The reality is we only have so much money to be able to distribute to sports. And we know that football, the world game, is the poor relation compared to Australian rules. Football, rugby, the Olympic sports, etc. We need to look into our own backyard and actually demonstrate that as an organisation, as a code, we're worthy of attracting more taxpayer funds.
I mean, where my difficulty with that discussion is that when he talks directly about the support for the Ollaroos, we're talking here about, in my opinion, about somewhere in between. You know, we have the Socceroos, which are our top national team, and that's what we are all looking at. So with all respect, first we want the Socceroos to be successful, right? And then you have...
And the Matildas. Let's not forget about the girls.
Of course. And then we have the Ollaroos. I mean, Ollaroos means every 4 years, right? I mean, it's the more or less youth team. But then if we talk about funding, as I said, we have to look also at the roots, right? And we discussed it in the past as well when it comes to government funding. So right at the start, how much in average does the government pay for football? How much for footy right, for rugby and all of that per capita. And we had that in the past, that the differences are massive, right?
Yeah.
So that's why where my a little bit of challenge with that is okay, we have the Socceroos on top, and which need to be supported in the best way, and we have really the junior, the kids out there that needs to be supported. So the Olyroos are somewhere in between, right? And to put the money in there, I would then probably see it a bit more at the junior and kids teams, because then automatically you will have also when you have the success there, the support for under 23 and the Olyroos.
Coming back to your point earlier, what you said about Caltex and Hyundai that are going to be pulling out.
And Aldi's, we're talking about the Mini-Roos program. Again, the loss of that particular support jeopardises the gains we've made at grassroots level. I see your concern, and I do share your concern in the sense that we are losing sponsors, that we're losing money. At the same time, having businesses and corporations come in and pull out for anything and everything is nothing new. I mean, I remember when we used to be the Qantas Socceroos, and then we were Caltex Socceroos. I remember when the A-League, when it wasn't the Hyundai A-League, it was the Homemart NSL, remember? I can remember when we were actually sponsored by, and I'm not going to name the brand, but we were actually sponsored by a cigarette company in the 1980s.
I remember. I know what you're talking about. Yes, we can't mention them, but
I was not in Australia then, but
we'll talk about it off air.
But that's true. So businesses come and go all the time, so I'm not all that concerned. I mean, and also just recently, the Australian cricket team, they lost one of their main sponsors during the middle of the cricket season, Domain. They actually pulled out in the middle of the season, not at the end. They're not going to say, okay, at the end we'll pull out. No, during the middle. So everyone's sort of losing their sponsors at the moment, and someone new will come in, I'm sure. But what you were saying is 100% correct. When it comes to funding, I cannot understand why football is the most played sport in Australia by a long, long, long way. It is beating all other sports in all other areas. The only area where football is not winning is females, because females primarily play netball. But even then, we're second. So football is played everywhere in Australia. It has got the biggest numbers. But when it comes to funding, we are so disproportionate against other sports. It's totally unfair.
My concern is the government will say to Football Federation Australia and all of the people that are invested in the game, you need to get your house in order. Before we actually hand over more taxpayer money to you, you need to get your domestic competition in order, you need to get your governance in order. And we know, let's not focus on the negatives, but we know our sport over the last few years has been racked by internal divisions, by cliques, by different...
But what organisation isn't? I mean, the NRL isn't exactly squeaky clean.
Oh, no, I'm not talking about off-field behaviour of the players themselves. I'm talking about the actual administration and governance.
Even administration as well.
You know, we had that big battle with Frank Lowy and his son over control of the competition. That's not a good look for our game. So when we're going to the government to say we would like more money, the government will say, well, show me why you deserve more support, more funding.
But at the same time, the local football club near your area, it's not their fault that the FFA aren't getting their stuff together. You know, they deserve funding because they need to have a new ground or new facilities or a new toilet or change room or whatever. It's not their fault that the FFA can't get their act together.
But on another note, I mean, government funding is one point, but if you're talking about, the sponsors, in my opinion, there are 2 points. One is, as a sponsor, as a company, as a brand, whatever, where they say, show me the success, right? So you have an A-League that is internationally, with all respect, I don't know, level 3, level 4, right? So if someone puts money into the A-League, I mean, what do you get out there? So, and the Australian teams, I mean, the Matildas maybe might get up there. The Socceroos, unfortunately, haven't been that successful. I still think a huge momentum has been lost after the Socceroos won the Asian Cup, but that's a different story, and that's past now. But one thing is, there is not that big success of the national teams. The A-League, unfortunately, is not on top compared to, as we just said, J-League, K-League. And secondly, if you look at marketing, commercial ads and so on, A-League, that just comes to people's acknowledgement and recognition 2 weeks before the A-League starts, because that's when AFL has finished. And I read comments and people say, also at the end of the season, when the AFL has started, A-League is still on. I didn't even know that. I thought that has finished long time ago. So the AFL has this massive, machinery behind, and they put it out there, and that's what I think A-League is, or the soccer is missing as well. People that are really driving, brilliant minds in terms of marketing.
But what you were saying about the Socceroos and the Matildas and the national teams and all that, you make a point. But at the same time, the Socceroos, they've qualified for 4 World Cups in a row. They won the Asian Champions League. They're the only non-Asian team to do it. The Matildas are getting better every year. They're Australia's most beloved sporting team. That was an actual poll. Sam Kerr is one of the best footballers on the planet. So on the national team level, there is some good, there's some positives and all that. So I'm sure that we'll find another sponsor with either one of those two. At a grassroots level, I still find it incredibly unfair that no matter how many people, how many participants there are with football, they're still struggling to find adequate resources and pitches and stuff like that, when other sports that are either just played in Australia or not as globally significant as football is, they have to fight funding for them because they get all the money. I still find it incredibly unfair. But you're right about the A-League. There needs to be more done in that area.
It's a bit of a vicious circle in that way. If you have the success, you get the sponsors, and then it's all getting up. But on the other hand, if you don't have the A-League numbers are dropping in terms of spectators, Champions League is not that really convincing, then it goes the other way. So you just need to have this cut where you say, now it's getting uphill again. And the national teams are up front for that.
Yeah. When we were mentioning funding, because when it comes to funding per participant, just individual participants for different sports, this is in the state of Victoria. When it comes to football, there's $15 million of government funding. Australian rules football, $285 million. Hockey, $32 million. Per participant, it comes around to, for Australian rules football, it's $1,444 per participant. For hockey, it's $1,473 per participant. And for football, which has the most participants, $67 each. So that's the discrepancy when it comes to funding, when football is the most played sport in the country and in the state of Victoria as well. It's even overlapped Aussie rules footy. But you mentioned about the governments and lobbying and all that sort of stuff. We mentioned the name John Wiley, who's the chairman of the Australian Sports Commission. I think it was about 2 years ago. They had a forum, a sports forum with Asia, about how to create business links with Asia through sport in Australia. And John Wiley was there doing, as part of the forum. And he said that the link or the future of sport in Asia, it wasn't football, it wasn't cricket or tennis or basketball or even rugby. He said it was AFLX. Let me repeat that.
That can't be true.
It's true. Yeah. Let me repeat that for all those who just had a minor heart attack hearing that. The chairman of the Australian Sports Commission said that the future of Asia, football or sport in Asia, was AFLX.
Well, they scrapped that. The AFL did away with AFLX for this particular pre-season.
Exactly right. But that's the mentality of the people that are in positions of authority that we have to deal with, that we have to compete with and ask and beg and lobby for money. They have no idea.
I just heard this morning that 2 AFL teams, Greater Western Sydney, I don't know what the other one was.
Gold Coast.
They are planning to play in California.
Oh, Essendon, yeah.
Yeah, in 2022 or something like that. So... Yeah, that's what we have to deal with.
That's what we have to deal with. Yeah. But we can go on about this all day.
And we will.
And we will. Yeah. There'll be a time when we will definitely will, but we have to move on.
It's a conversation for another day.
Another day. Days. When the Olympics are coming around, I'm sure we'll be talking about it non-stop, but we have to move on. So now to the games for round 22 of the A-League. First up, it's Brisbane Roar versus Western Sydney. Who will come out on top, George?
This is going to be a really tough one to predict. It'll be a great game too. Brisbane Roar, they've been in pretty good form lately. Robbie Fowler seems to have turned it around.
Coach of the month.
Yeah, that's right. Western Sydney, we've been praising their performances for the last couple of weeks. I think it'll be a draw.
Could be.
I can't split the teams.
Yeah.
Well, I was wrong with the Wanderers last time against Sydney, but I would say Wanderers winning. Mitch Duke scores.
Yes, I agree with you. I think Wanderers will win. They're just on a roll at the moment. They're 2 wins on the trot. I think they're going to go for 3. They're going to go for a hat-trick with the win against Brisbane. It's going to be a really good one because both teams have a genuine shot of being in the top 6, of being in the finals. So who knows what could happen, but I think Western Sydney are going to win that one. Next up on Saturday, Adelaide United plays Western United. Who's going to win that one, Bernd?
Well, if you look at both teams, I mean, Western United came back after that win Central Coast Mariners, and the performance the weeks before was not so convincing. I saw Adelaide United on Saturday in Melbourne, not convinced, and there's a little bit of how to say that, unhappiness going on with the coach behind the scenes. But I would say this one, Adelaide at home, Cooper Stadium, so a win for the Reds.
What do you know that listeners don't know about behind the scenes, Bernd? Do tell.
Well, I can't. What I've heard, I mean, is obviously that with Verbeek, I mean, the way that they go ahead and the way he treats some players is something where you would think, okay, and the performance was really dropping down over the last weeks, right? I think they had now 3 losses in a row, or 4 even. So we'll see if they can turn it around. But also if you see how he treats players, I mean, that was, I think we discussed it already with Ryan Kiddo in one of the media conferences where he really was talking about that specific players in front of everyone, and you can't do that. So and that was, I think, something that got a little bit of a cut in that team.
Yeah, they were unlucky not to get more out of last week's performance. They did hit the crossbar a couple of times. Yeah. So on any other night, that they could have won the game or at least taken a point. So it's not all doom and gloom for Adelaide.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. It's not all doom and gloom. I think that, they have sort of dropped down a bit. Their quality isn't as there as they were in the beginning of the season. They are a bit of a mixed bag. When they're great, they're great. But when they're bad, they're bad. But Western United, I'm still not convinced. I think Adelaide should win that one. Later, it's the big blue between rivals Melbourne Victory and Sydney FC. Who's your tip, George?
Sydney.
Ooh.
Yep, back to winning ways, I think. They would have been disappointed to have lost the match against Western Sydney, the draw in the Champions League, Asian Champions League. So, they'll want to get back to winning ways as soon as possible.
Me too, although Melbourne Victory had the win against Adelaide, a bit lucky in the last minute, and it was not convincing. So you still can feel the whole team is not really, there is a lack of confidence, and I doubt that they will get it back against Sydney, so I'm with George.
Although in saying that, Marco Rojas finally on the score sheet. And same with Andrew Naboo. Perhaps he's going to need to have black eyes all the time because he scored probably a contender for goal of the year with one eye.
Although Topper Stanley's hammer was...
Yes.
That was even better. That was better. And he's a defender, so, But, this is a hard one to predict. It really is because, on paper you think, Sydney FC should win, but they
ladder positions, first versus eighth.
Yeah, it is a hard one. I'm going to go for a draw on this one because there really are, pros and cons. You would think Sydney FC should win, but...
Particularly the strength of their forward line. Barbarousis, help me out here, Ninkovic.
Baumjan, yeah.
And up front with
Lefondre.
Yes.
They do have a good team, but...
their defence too.
I'm not surprised that they are up there. I mean, unfortunately, we didn't have a prediction at the start of the season, but and it's now easy to say. But when people said Melbourne Victory can compete for the championship, Sydney FC was always my favorite. It's easy to say now. I know I have no evidence for that, but I'm not surprised. And they are the best team, and they deserve. Hopefully, this year the best team will not only win the premiership, but also then the
final series.
The toilet seat.
I'm not going to write off Perth Glory, which I'm sure you're going to get to in a moment.
Yes, exactly right. Sunday, Central Coast takes on Wellington. What do you think, Bernd?
Well, I said it last week already. Wellington, they are getting a little bit of a favorite team for me because I just like the style they are playing, and they everybody is always against them in terms of what they are delivering to the A-League, and they should lose their license and get it to an Australian team. But they are still there, and so I support them, I must admit. So, and also if you look at the ladder, Wellington, good chance to have a playoff spot. So I go with Wellington.
Yes, Ufuk Talay has done a fantastic job this season. It was a bit of a poison chalice for him because look at how many players left the club. Yeah. Mind you, it doesn't happen when Mark Rudan brings a number of players with him to Western United. Yeah. So, I mean, he's done a great job rebuilding that club.
And look at the difference between one and the other. I mean, Wellington Phoenix, they're doing so well. They've gone beyond everybody's expectations. Yeah. I thought that once Mark Rudan was gone and some of those good players had left, I thought that was it. Sarpreet Singh, what a great player he was. And I thought, that's it. They're going to go down. But they've surprised. They've really, really good.
I have to be honest, a bit of humble pie for me too, because I was an advocate for them being thrown out.
Hey, you and me and almost all of the country, all right? Because I you know what? I still want them out. I'm sorry to all three of you Wellington supporters. I still don't want a New Zealand team in there. Maybe when we have a second division and all that sort of stuff, that can be, arranged. But I still would have preferred a team from Tasmania or Wollongong or, one of these areas. But anyway, that's for another discussion. And to finish, Perth Glory encounters Melbourne City. Who will win that one, George?
What a clash. That's the match of the round. Two very, very well-performed teams. Perth Glory 1-0.
Ooh. Okay.
They're just going to edge it.
Okay.
Difficult one. I just say, I would have said draw, because I see them on a similar level, but home ground 2-0 Perth Glory.
Yes, I agree with you on that one, Bernd. I think that Melbourne City, they do have problems playing against teams that are high up, that like Sydney and Perth and all those sort of teams. But in Perth should be.
The Fornaroli factor. Sorry to have to raise that with you. I know it's a sore point.
I thought we said before the show not to mention Fornaroli, but, if you want to be like that, fine. But, we have to end the show now because of that.
Well, good way to win the show. Bit of controversy, bit of tension.
But you know what? We haven't mentioned, and now I mentioned for the first time, the Reds.
Liverpool? No. Let's wrap up the show, please.
Okay. With that, I think we have to wrap up the show. So we have to leave it there for now. Good luck to the Matildas tomorrow night and next Wednesday. Thank you for listening to Football Access. Hope to see you next week. Bye for now.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you, George. Thanks, Gabriel. Bye-bye.